So today, rather than giving you guys any business tactic, I wanted to talk about the one thing that helped my kickstart, I guess, my self-improvement journey. And that's gonna be fixing my posture, right? So the thing about posture is having good posture really improves the way that you see yourself, firstly, which will then translate into how others perceive you. But the thing is, with posture, if you have bad posture, it's pretty hard to change, or at least rather, it takes a lot of effort to. So in this video, I'm gonna show you how to go from this to this within 4 weeks and kind of avoid all of the hardship that I had to go through. So before I start, I wanted to talk about the importance of posture by sharing with you a story that, to be honest, it makes me smile thinking about it. Because it was from back in, I'd say like 2017, 2018, when I first read the book 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. And in the very first chapter, it was talking about how rule number 1 is stand up straight with your shoulders back. And the example that he gave was not just any animal, it was very specific and probably not one that you would expect, right? It was about lobsters. That's right, even in lobsters, posture makes a huge difference. Because when lobsters fight, both lobsters inevitably will get hurt in one way or another. So, to determine which lobster is a more dominant one, they actually use posture. And lobsters are able to size up their opponent based on their posture and create sort of like a social hierarchy and behave accordingly. So just think about how that works in relation to humans, right? And how your body language is actually affecting the way that other people perceive you also. In my opinion, when it comes to self-improvement, I think body language is probably one of the lowest hanging fruits you can actually improve about yourself, because, you know, there's even been studies where if you stand in like a Superman pose like this or something, it, I don't know, raises your endorphins and dopamine levels in your brain. However, obviously, you don't want to look like a retard and just like stand like this all the time, right? But instead, you can actually have good body language all of the time. And not only is this really going to be good for your bone structure, but also make yourself feel more confident, as well as make other people perceive you to be more confident and in turn also competence, right? Because honestly, I've seen guys who kind of like are hunched over like this a little bit with their neck out, and it just, oh man, it just looks really, really terrible. It makes you look short, it makes you look insecure, and it overall just makes you look like, I don't know how to really describe it, but you know when someone are standing in a certain way and you just perceive them to be like less competent in basically every area of life? Yeah, if you think I'm judgmental, I get it, but it's that's kind of just like me being honest, I guess. And indeed, in my life, I have met a few people like these, right? And every time I see them, I just kind of get like, oh, if they just straightened up their back and kind of like pull their shoulders back a little bit, they would look so good, yet they're kind of like hunched over like this. So standing up straight is really important, and here's how you actually get good posture, right? You stand up straight, so you use your erector muscles in your kind of like lower back right here, right? You kind of straighten that, and then also don't stick your chest out like this, but rather just like keep your chest neutral. But the thing that makes your shoulders pop essentially is if you kind of like, rather than standing like this, I know I'm wearing a black shirt and the wall is black, but if rather than standing like this, the way to get good posture is if you just like roll your shoulders back a little bit and drop them down so that you look nice and relaxed. Right? So that's kind of how you get good posture, but how do you actually implement that into your day-to-day life without constantly needing to think about it? Well, I'm gonna show you a couple of exercises that you can actually do to build the muscles necessary in order to support good body posture. But before we get into that, I just wanna make sure you understand that, you know, fixing your posture, how you sit, how you stand, is basically the first step to you drastically improving yourself as an individual. But also, it's not really one of those things where, you know, if you have good posture, people are really, really gonna notice it and compliment you 24/7. But it's one of those things where if you have bad posture, people are really gonna notice and are gonna judge you for it 100% of the time, right? So no one's gonna think, wow, this guy's posture is amazing, but people will see it if it's a kind of like a bad thing, right? How you're actually gonna improve people's perception of you is subconsciously, because you're standing in a certain way, people will perceive you to being more confident and in turn more competent at all areas in life, and also raise your levels of authority when you speak to individuals. So I think we've established why posture is important. Let's actually jump into how do you actually maintain, a straight spine as well as like rotated shoulders, right? How do you actually maintain that position all the time? Well, the answer is actually quite simple. You need to make it a habit, but the way you make it a habit is not by consciously thinking about it 24/7, right? I mean, you can call yourself out on it and correct yourself as you go along, and over time it will improve. However, the thing that's actually going to make a huge difference to your posture is having the right muscle groups trained up nicely, right? And the muscle groups that's going to be required is going to be your back muscles, right? And mainly, it's not actually, your lateral muscles. It's kind of like this area right here in your lower back. I call them like your erector muscles, but I'm not sure what the full like Latin variation of the name is. But just think about it as like the two loins on your lower back. That muscle is going to be the thing that kind of keeps your spine straight, right? So the way I kind of realized I subconsciously improved my posture was actually by doing exercises like deadlifting, right? Where the lower back is kind of involved and you're really, contracting that muscle in the lift. When you perform deadlifts with really good form, what's going to happen is your posterior chain, which is everything from your neck to your lower back and even your calves, it's going to be kind of like strained, which means that in deadlifting, you're training the same muscle groups that is required for having good posture. And honestly, from my experience, the thing that made me have good posture quite easily is just because naturally my back is quite developed. But for those of you who are struggling in the genetic department, maybe you're more arm dominant or chest dominant, right? Whereas I'm more back dominant. You might want to consider also adding other exercises that train your lower back, such as morning stars, or I think they're called good mornings. Is basically when you have a barbell on your back like this, and then you keep your legs straight, and then you just bend and go like this. You can Google that, how to actually do that exercise, but that's the thing that's going to also really build up that erector muscle and get you in really good posture. Now, one thing that's also going to help is, obviously you need to notice it throughout the day if you have bad posture and you're really used to, slouching over a little bit, and just mentally correcting yourself over and over again. And it's gonna be developed over repetition over time. So yeah, this is kind of like the first change I ever made in my self-improvement journey that really propelled me forward, in my opinion, from like a purely kind of like self-image perspective. Because the thing is, if you constantly perceive yourself as inferior, you're not gonna be able to have the ego and the, I guess, like self-belief in yourself to actually go ahead and push you out of your comfort zone to achieve the desired outcomes that you want for your own life. So I genuinely think improving your self-image is one of the first things you should do when it comes to self-development, and posture is a really, really big part of that, and body language in general. So just to summarize, right, you can do exercises like deadlifts and good mornings to strengthen up your back muscles, and then also to just remind you, right, to easily get in good posture all the time is just, straightening your lower back and then rolling back your shoulders without popping your chest out too much, right? Because you don't want to be that dickhead that, is like walking like this with his chest out and like jiggling his titties to everyone, right? So that's how you have good posture. Super important. Subscribe if you want to learn more about entrepreneurship and self-development. See you in the next one.